So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another conversation hosted by Heart Community Group with people who inspire us as part of our series called Living Well Now. I first came across Briony as part of the deep adaptation community quite recently. And then earlier this year, I invited Briony to come and work with me on one of my 4-day Edge retreats, which she did, and it was an absolutely magical afternoon and evening. Thank you very much, such fond memories. So Briony is, and you can say more about who you are and what you do, obviously, Briony, later. She's an artist, a teacher, a healer, a ceremonialist, change maker. She does lots of improv, very focused on healing trauma and the body and the connection of the body with mind and transformation and spiritual leadership, all of those things. What's going to happen is I'm actually going to start by playing a piece of music, which is from Briony. And we were so privileged at the Edge retreat because Briony came and did this live and we all joined in. There's no expectation that you need to sing today unless you want to, but it was absolutely fabulous. Listen to the lyrics as well. So just for the next few minutes, what I'd ask is you just relax, take in the beauty of this piece of music.
Thank you for your heart. 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 Thank you for the ways you're brave enough to feel all the things you feel when your human freaking being is kind of intense inside this form. Thank you for your grief. Thank you for holding me with your whole body as my heart was breaking into two. Thank you for holding me like a mother when I was struggling hard. Thank you for the ways you showed me all of your heart. And thank you for your touch. And thank you for your dance. And thank you for sitting with me while I smoked cigarettes, 'cause I didn't want to feel it all. Thank you. Is it jumping for joy? Is it stuck in the mud? Is it deadened by the screen, by the pressure and all the work? Has it been shrouded in caffeine? Has it been pushed down too many times? Has it been wounded by somebody else's suffering and their violence? Is it ready to be checked into hospital? Is it ready to lie down and rest? Is your heart rising again in its nature and its grace, in its rightful time and place, right here, right now?
So I'm going to pause it at that point, even though it goes on for a lot longer, and I can send people the link to that if you're interested. But isn't that beautiful? Just wonderful. And so, Briony, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh, hi, Kim. I'm so honoured to be your guest today. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I wanted to start with, so I'll ask a couple of questions and I'll throw it open to the group. But as you know, in Heart Community Group, we're focused on local community resilience and adaptation and everything to do with coming together as we face our sort of interconnected predicaments. Perhaps you could just start by telling us a little bit about your journey, particularly with regard to community, transformation, leadership, and kind of take as long as you like over this, but just give us a sense of who you are and how you came to be doing what you do now.
Wow, that's a big question. I'm gonna ignore the bit about take as long as you like, because I could probably, articulate a book in this moment. I suppose with community, where it started was many moons ago. I was a social researcher, and I had this strange job researching play, fun, and joy internationally. And the research took me towards ritual, because in many cultures, when they create joy by singing, dancing, drumming, but they don't usually just do it for the crack. They do it for a reason, like a seasonal reason, or a spiritual reason, or a social reason, or it's somebody's wedding, or somebody's funeral, or somebody's initiation. So that meaning aspect of our rituals and celebrations, took me into a deep inquiry about ritual. And I think what really caught my attention in the realm of ritual research was rites of passage, and particularly youth rites of passage. I think my teen years had been quite messy, and I'd lost, two of my friends had died in that mess. And I saw some people managing to recover and some people never managing to recover from how our teen years impacted us. And I was like, oh boy, why were we so under-supported, under-resourced? Why did we plummet? Or why was that so messy? And I felt that the absence of rites of passage was kind of the answer to that question. So I started to work with this rites of passage organization in California called the Stepping Stones Project. And they became a lot about village, because we had the people in our 20s and 30s supporting the teens. Then there were the elders supporting the parents, but then the elders needed their own support. Then there was the board supporting everyone. And then we'd have these village gatherings where we're like, oh my, we're just all on the wheel together, supporting each other in this cycle. And I mean, the love in that village. And I just moved to America and left this big British family behind. And so they became like my American family, hugely important to me. So I think that was my first taste of like how rich community can be when it's intergenerational, conscious, sober, spiritual. You gather around fire, you do counsel, you hear each other, you support each other. We initiate the elders, we initiate the youth, and everybody supports everyone. And then my next journey was with the Network for New Culture in the US. I just got invited to lead some singing at one of their gatherings. And I arrived and I was like, you're all really weird. I'm going to stay till Tuesday. I'm going to do my job and I'm going to go.
And by Tuesday, I was happier than I'd ever been in my life. I think, and I hadn't looked at my phone in days, I hadn't eaten chocolate in days, all of my little coping mechanisms had just faded away, because actually my social needs, my need for connection, my need to be seen, heard, touched, reflected, accepted, were all met in such abundance. And the Network for New Culture, very influenced by Tamara and Zeg in Europe, these two eco-villages in Europe that have been very pioneering. So the Network for New Culture is an American network, and they're exploring kind of community connection, intimacy, they're sex positive, but it's a lot about truth, transparency, mutual support, and how do we relate well as community? How do we deal with conflicts? How do we overcome judging one another, othering each other, and these things that make it quite shit in community? Like, how do we go from war to love in community? So I kept going back as a singing facilitator there. And I think those journeys led me to Tamara, led me to ISTA, and now I lead Zeg Forum, I lead a variety of community forms, and I mostly lead singing retreats. That's like that's my central theme of my work, but it's lovely. It's summer festival season at the moment, so I'm getting to be in various communities, leading various things. And I think, my overall longing and dream is to live in more of an intentional community where these things are actually woven into our way of life. And I really admire and appreciate what you all are doing there in your local area. And I think I met a woman who leads Bright Green Futures, that's an eco-village development group. And I said, I tried for 2 years to set up an eco-village whilst also being a teaching artist, and I gave up. And she said, well, I'm really impressed because we're a team of 8 full-time people and we do manage it, but it's really hard with like an eight-person full-time team. So that made me kind of go and accept limits to my personal voluntary capacity. So, but it's still my longing.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you. So that's a really nice sense. We talk in Heart Community Group quite a lot about finding what's yours to do, because there's and I've seen a distinction recently between good work or great work and my work. Like, those are 2 different things.
Your work's pretty great, Kim. What are you saying? Your work's pretty great. What are you saying? I haven't understood.
No, I'm saying that there's a whole series of things that could be called good work, but that's not necessarily the same as my work. So I'm saying one is a subsection of the other. So I'm not saying
what's yours to do within the.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it sounds like you have found what's yours to do. So I was just curious as to whether you had any wisdom to share about how do you find that? Because I know a lot of people in our community struggle with that. I feel so small. I feel so unsure. It's kind of, this whole territory is mapless. Anything about how we can find our unique thread in all of this, or where to start with that?
I think for me it was very deep. It was spiritual. It involved vision quest. It involved tears that had me on the floor with frustration and longing, and it involved the terror of leaving behind a life I knew and going towards what was calling me strongly, but there was no sorts of guarantees. Like I told my parents, I'm off to America to work in vocal improvisation and rites of passage. And my dad was just like, what are either of those things? And my dad holds this sort of security pillar, and is always terrified by what I'm doing. And I suppose I have had to downplay money and not, and I've just about got by, but I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination, because I've gone towards what was calling my heart most, and that was this epic longing to sing. And I suppose in my particular journey, sort of grown up improvising in a culture that didn't, you know, as a kid, I was just singing and making up songs and improvising. And then I got to school and it was like, oh, right, you're musical. So here are dots and here's instruments and here's music written by dead white men. This is how we do music. And it's like, my creativity, my body, my heart, my me. Yeah, so I didn't really find musical cultures that resonated with me till I was 29 and in India and experiencing other people improvising for the first time. And I had a political science degree. I was working as a campaigner. And once I found other people improvising, it was just this, you know, in my life, I'm like, I just have to go towards that. And that's the only thing I can do now. And it was very disruptive. But ultimately has worked out well. And I ended up getting funding and support to go over to America and study with improvising singer masters there. And essentially I've brought that art form back to Britain and now teach it, spread it and make it available to people as best I can. So that's the kind of, I'd say the central theme of my life, the central trope is this relationship with this art form and bringing more access to improvised music and kind of cœur corps community. I was clarifying this, I was in France, but like heart body community in music and music education and community music.
Thank you. So it sounds like even though it might have been disruptive, it was fairly obvious, like what you, after a period of reflection and listening.
Yeah, I think being strongly called, but I think that being preceded by years of questioning and I've got this voice, what shall I do with it? I can't see anywhere for it to fit. I don't like anything I see around me. I don't see a place for me. What's hard is that you can't often see what's to do when you're surrounded by a culture that is Judeo-Christian, patriarchal, post-industrial revolution, post-Norman invasion, like the paradigm that we're living within. And then you might be looking for like something that just isn't in that. So you can't recognize it anywhere. Bill Plotkin is a really good writer on this. He has this book called Soulcraft and this stage of being the wanderer in the cocoon. And he says, not all who wander are lost. And I think Soulcraft was a really good companion for me when I was in that stage. And he says sort of going towards the numinous that calls you. And it might be little, it might be this tree calls me right now. I do think we've got, I think, this is just conjecture, but is it true that in our education and our training as humans, our Western conditioning, we get trained like not to follow what is calling us. We get trained to do what we're told, complete the homework task, show up by 9 a.m, now do this lesson, take that track because it's what's sane in the world as we think it is. So this bit of like, oh, but I would like to dance now. Or, oh, but what's really interesting me is the book on this thing. Yeah. We learn to like say no to those instincts. But that is, I think that's our soul telling us like what would be a good next thing. So it's actually relearning to say yes to that and to go towards that tree or that person or that book or that. And even if you're crap, even if it's been with singing, one of the things I deal with is people coming to me in their 60s having not sung their whole life. And of course, initially the voice is very weak. So you're like, oh God, I've got this longing to sing, but I sound dreadful because it's like a bird that's been raised in a cage and the wings can't fly anymore. So you start to fly initially and you're like, ugh. But that's just a stage, like anything that gets re-inhabited after a while will get its wings back, so.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask, because I know from talking to you before that there's a, this sort of central thread again of voice, of helping people find their voice, and embodiment as well. And I know I'm just looking at Chantal, who's recently started a community choir in St Albans where she lives, and I know gets a great deal of joy and spreads a lot of joy as well from that. What's important about finding our voice, if this is not a bloody obvious question, finding our voice and embodiment in the context of making a contribution in the, you know, the world as it currently is? What's important to you?
Ultimately, I think this is our nature. You know, we can think about nature as being this out there thing, but actually it's also this right here thing. And I think, you know, with voice, we're a singing species. And so, you know, Chantal, and the joy you're finding and you're bringing in your community, people are like, oh yes, singing this thing, that is part of my humanity, and the joy of doing that together. And I think this separation from our humanity, this taming and numbing of the body, this shutdown of the voice, particularly with improvisation, where you're not given a song, you find the song's terrifying for people initially. Like, oh God, I don't want you to see what's in my mind and may come out of my mouth. But actually coming more into our authenticity, and then expressing our authenticity and receiving each other's authenticity. It's gently paradigm shifting, I think. And actually it's a bit of a, I'm not sure if I'm quite on the thread with the question, but Kim, I keep talking and thinking about your 4 categories model, you know, column 1 is about how we relate to our predicament environmentally and so on.
4 columns, yeah.
4 columns. And the first is like, la la, climate change, not a thing, la la la, denial. And the second is like, oh, it's a bit of a problem, we'll just change the light bulbs, we'll be fine. The third, sorry, my partner being noisy next door. The third is like, oh, we've really got a problem, let's lobby the government to sort it out. And the fourth is like, oh shit, let's build resilient regenerative communities. How do we do that? And Kim, you said to me, and I'm so struck by this, you said most people in leadership in business and government, off record, they're in column 3 and 4, but the publicly acceptable space is column 2. And what's missing is an authenticity gap.
Yeah.
And I'm just, I was like, oh shit, you mean to say if we had more of a culture of authenticity, then leadership in every sector everywhere would be doing things that are actually more appropriate to our current times. I mean, that's an overwhelming insight. It's heartbreaking, frustrating, terrifying, all the things. But I suppose what we have with vocal improv is this journey towards authenticity through your authentic singing. Improv, the words go too fast for you to really manipulate them too much. You get sung at the end of the day, and you end up through it finding your authentic voice. And
one of the things I love that you did with the group in May was the creature language thing. And I wondered if, and people can either join in or not as they feel appropriate, or you can keep the sound off if you want. But yeah, do a bit of that with us, because I found that extraordinary.
Okay. I'm gonna just jump in at the deep end here, everybody. Good luck. So it's speaking nonsense. So I'm gonna speak a bit of nonsense to you, a bit of creature language to you. But I'm gonna do a check-in. Well, actually, first of all, let's just try speaking some nonsense just to warm up on nonsense. I'll go first. You're gonna feel so stupid. Just have a go. You can be on mute. Damara at the same time. Some of you, I'm not seeing your mouth move. Go on, have a go. Okay, so now you can use creature language to kind of let other parts of the being express themselves. So now I'm going to check in creature language. Okay, oh, and you find yourself saying things like what I found. So if I'm going to translate what I said, wow, I love that we're here together having this conversation. And when I look at each of you, I have so much faith that there is a seed, there is a gift in each of you. And how great that we're on this path together. And it's like, we may not find the answers within one lifetime, but let's journey together. And it might be an intergenerational thing, you know, but we walk. So now, muted, I invite you to just have a go at doing a creature language check-in and see what you find yourself expressing. Have a go. Kim, you might want to be on mute. Yeah. Okay. Did you find yourself expressing something?
Or unmute yourself and come in with any observations or.
What did you find yourself saying? What's your translation?
Kate.
Mostly help. But you know, not too unpleasant.
Gilly, you look, yeah.
I was expressing such gratitude to see you all and be here. So just wholehearted. Thank you.
Yeah, that was what was coming up for me as well. Lots of thank you. Yeah. Anybody else?
Oh, Catherine, it looks like you're saying something, but you're muted.
Catherine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, now, of course, because of the technical issue, I've forgotten what I was going to say. I think what I was going to say was just delighted for the opportunity to play with a group of people that I've never met before and feel connected. So that was joyful.
Yeah. Fabulous. Thank you, Briony. And I've just got one more question, then I'll throw it open to the group. And again, it might seem obvious from what you've already said, the answer to this. What sustains and nourishes you? Because it can be very easy to look at everything that's going on and be in grief, sadness, anger, frustration, all of those stages. What sustains and nourishes you? What's that line in that beautiful song? How is your heart? Is it jumping for joy? What creates jumping for joy?
Dancing. I dance so much. I do a lot of 5 rhythms, and I make these playlists, these little half-hour playlists, which I'd gladly share some of them with you. And I just, get up in the morning. If I'm feeling particularly worthy, I meditate for 10 minutes and then get my dance on, or yoga, or sometimes go for a jog or something. But you, like, entering the day into my body, but particularly dance, because jumping around, just endorphins, it's very straightforward. But also because for me, my body is more how I access my inner life, and my mind isn't really the way. So for some people it's journaling, and that doesn't really work for me, but actually singing, dancing is how I digest what it is to live day by day. So dancing, love, eros, creativity, and I think being on a journey where there's always a next song wanting to come through that needs my care. There's always, a next bill that has to be paid, and I have to get out there and earn some money. There's like people that want to sing, or people that say thank you so much because the singing helped them or nourished them or fed them. So community, relating, serving, acting, doing. So I think it sustains me. And
Beautiful.
And I don't connect that much with the news. I mean, it's a problem I haven't yet solved, is like, what is a good source of news? But I suppose what they say at Tamera is that we're what Dita Doom, one of the founders of Tamera Eco Village in Portugal, says we're in a 5,000-year trauma, fear, violence matrix, and there's been violence, so there's trauma, so there's fear, so there's violence, and around and round and round it goes. He says when we live in the modern world, we keep plugging into that matrix, and it reproduces through us, and we reproduce it, and we're in it. And God, it's dreadful. If something's going to suck your will to live, it's that, he says there's also a sacred matrix, which is cooperation and interdependence and interbeing. And he says that the map for the sacred matrix is in every cell of everything that lives. But what we have to do is actually unplug from the information system of the trauma matrix and find ways of plugging in to the sacred matrix. And that might be nature connection, it might be singing, dancing, the body, eros, community, love, service, ritual, fire, all these sorts of things. And I suppose I live by that a bit.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So it's a kind of a not necessarily a conscious, but well, maybe it is conscious. Like it's where we direct our attention at any point to the trauma matrix or the sacred matrix. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, this is so useful already. So I'm going to open it up. Anybody that wants to, we're a small group, anybody wants to, just stick your hand up or unmute yourself and go for it. Anything you're curious to ask Briony, or just share as an observation.
Briony, I would love to ask, I mean, it seems to me that you managed to stay connected to, you know, what is it really is being a human being and to nature and to some kind of wholeness, even though you're not presently living in a local community or in a community that embrace those things. I mean, for me, it's been really, really difficult to not just get drawn back into everyday life. And I mean, the Edge retreat was such a blessing because it was something where you could stay outside that daily routine for 4 full days. But how do you find kind of the spaces to embrace this what is really and be with people, you know,
Thanks for the question. And you know, yeah, I feel you on that. Right now you're speaking to me at the end of the summer, and I've had back-to-back summer festivals. I've been teaching and performing at festivals like Medicine Festival and Touch and Play and Buddha Field and Unicorn Song Village. And I'm finding summer festivals are really where subculture and community is fomenting itself. And we're being mostly outdoors and mostly barefoot on the earth and mostly in community, and it's effing great. and I'm really glad that my work gets me, you know, I get gently paid to go to the festival, but I don't have to pay to be there. I get a little bit paid. So, and then a lot of my work is teaching retreats and going to retreat centres. And so I work in groups of about 16 people, and we're off, you know, we have a lot of nature connection as part of it. So that's maybe something between a quarter and a third of my year if we put together festivals and retreats I teach. And then I suppose working from home the rest of the time, being self-employed, and then living in South Devon where there's a good local crowd of dancers and change makers and ceremonialists and nature. You know, I'm not alone there at all, and so there's various great things going on that we keep helping each other tap in to the well. And then I think, yeah, just in my personal day-to-day life, like my creative practices, my partnership, these things all will keep me plugged into some good juice as well. So I mean, that might be in terms of following the numinous, you know. I don't want to give you advice really, but I'm going to. But in terms of just like what brings you joy, you know, is there a dance somewhere? I mean, you're in Sweden, and there's the No Mind Festival, and I don't know, but there's, you know,
it's close even. It's just around the corner from my place. So I should be there.
Oh, it's close. There you go. So what, like, and it can look a bit funny at first, the way the Network for New Culture, I arrived and I was like, well, you all are too weird, you know, but wow, they had good ways of doing things. So in a really honest way, and your creature, maybe not your mind, because I think what I hope in doing creature language with you is like, just by speaking nonsense, I find I use it a lot and I sing in it a lot. I find it connects me to something other than my sort of frontal cortex. It connects me to my heart, my body, this kind of creature part of me that then feels this gratitude or feels this help or whatever, you know, is true for your creature being. And so I think then my question to you, Joaquin, is like, what makes your creature being happy? Is it going to a dance scene? Is it going to a certain place or a certain crowd of people or a certain person or swimming in a lake? Or that, what is it that gives you that? And cultivating those relationships as a next step.
Yeah, thank you. I do have a picture of those things, so
Great.
I think I can go there.
Then there's lots of hope.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Who's next?
It looks like Jeremy said something, but you're on mute, Jeremy.
Kate said, have you got anything to say? And I said, yes, but I'm holding back.
No.
Especially as we've now had 2 males, I think there may only be 2 or 3 males in the group, and we've spoken first, and if I spoke now, I'll be second. So I'm not going to say anything yet, but I might towards the end.
So, ladies, down to you.
I would like to see Briony's dance and see how she does that, because I quite like dancing. I'm not a dancer, but I was a primary school teacher, and with primary school teaching, often you have a little dance that you do. You just make something up, and the children make something up, and then if you're with children in a group, you just do it, and they do it, or they do it, and you do it, and it's like a piece of conversation. It's very fun, but nobody official takes any notice of it. It's just a fun thing that you do that kind of takes you away from the other stuff that's so tedious.
That sounds great. I was just looking at my WhatsApp there because I've just shared all this with my neighbor. She was like, I'll trade you figs for playlists. I said, great. She's like, I want to dance. So we could all do it now. So I do what I call 6 rhythms, which is just like 5 rhythms, but with an extra rhythm. So let's do it now if you want. We're going to do it without any music. The first rhythm is fascia. It's when you sort of lie on the floor and you stretch and you like feel where you're stiff and you roll into the floor and you feel your body. And I don't know if you know about fascia, but this is sort of thin layer of stuff, and it can get quite solid in life, and actually just moving it can start to unstiffen it. So this is kind of slow, stretchy, and we're not lying on the floor, any of us, but let's feel our feet and feel our weight in the sit bones. And so feel the sort of downward contact that if we were on the floor, it would be the whole body. Yeah, great. So that's the first rhythm. The second is flow, where we sort of explore flowiness and wateriness and sort of extension of our limbs and circles and going with the flow and ease and breath. Yeah, the next one is staccato, where we like stamp and say no and have boundaries and a bit of anger maybe and our this is hard work and fuck those people who aren't listening and whatever, you know, like, ooh, take your booty or your chest or your yeah. Then the next is chaos, where you just like shake it all out. You shake your head, you might cry or grieve or it's all too much, I want to give up, let me fall into a hole. God, that's chaos. The next is lyrical. Sort of jump around happily. It's kind of airy dancing. You maybe play some folk music and jig around because you're kind of much happier now that you've got your out with staccato and your out with chaos, and you sort of you sort of jump around. And the last one is stillness, which is subtlety, breath, allowing movement, just really awareness, feeling movement, maybe lying on the floor, resting after all that energy. And yeah, I just wrote this out very simply for my neighbor and sent her links to some short playlists so I could share that.
Yeah.
I think if I copied and pasted it off WhatsApp right now, it would have all at 11:04 Briony Greenhill said. So I'll take all that out and share it with you, Kim.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah.
Whenever I, and we haven't met very often, but you're one of those people that constantly reminds me of the importance of the body, and I think, I don't know whether it's through just conditioning or, you know, I often remind myself of when Sir Ken Robinson did his TED talk, and he said, you know, what academics are like, your body is just a way of getting your head to meetings. It's just a form of transport for your head. Like I've been like that a lot of my life, and I think it's really valuable to come into that more. Because otherwise,
how does it make you feel to come into your body more? What's the experience for you?
Yeah, good. I just don't do it, or I haven't done it like as a matter of course. So it's a habit to get into, if you like.
And a kind of permission to be goofy, because what I like about 5 Rhythms is there isn't a choreography. So it means you can work with your strengths and limitations of your own particular body in that moment.
Brilliant.
But it means that you are goofy. It's like in Creature language, you're goofy. And if there's parts of your being that's like, oh no, I mustn't be goofy, you know. But hopefully, because it's fun being goofy. So
yeah,
hopefully fun wins over inhibition.
It gets easier, yeah.
It gets easier. There you go.
Thank
Practice
you.
Goofiness.
So who's next? Jilly? Yeah, go for it, Jilly.
I am so enjoying this. I have to go in a minute because I have an emergency dental appointment. But the bottom line for me is what we're talking about is playfulness. And I'm a retired primary school teacher as well, and children just do that so naturally. And Ken Robinson was so right about, you know, education, getting rid of the creativity. So that authenticity and playfulness of children is just so valuable. And you speak my language, Briony. Thank you. So lovely to see you again. And I'm reflecting on the people in my life and how they are playful. And I'm drawn to playful people who don't take themselves too seriously and are happy to play with me. And I'm definitely going to be exploring that more. And singing would be a way forward.
Yeah, fabulous.
Yeah, so thank you for your heart, and thank you so much for your playfulness.
Lovely to see you, Jilly. I'll see you on the 10th.
Yes, lovely. Okay, so
thanks, Jilly. Bye-bye. Enjoy all the plays.
Yeah, thank you. And your kids, so lovely to see you again from the Edge retreat.
Good to see you too again, Jilly. Hi.
Bye all. Bye. Thank you.
Hope the dentist isn't too. I spent 2 hours yesterday morning at the dentist. Anyway, yes, so we've got Catherine, and then must remember to come back to Jeremy. Catherine, go for it.
Well, I thought it would be neat to have a trio of ex-primary school teachers. So I'm number 3. And yeah, and I've put my hand up and I don't know what I'm going to say, but that feels quite appropriate as we're talking about improvisation. But echoing what Kate and Jilly were saying about working with very small children, I now, my work is with as a storyteller, and I work with parents and small children. And that is largely sessions of joyful connection and playfulness and improvisation and creating new narratives. And I've been doing it for 17 years. And during my summer break, I've been thinking, I'm too tired, I'm too old for this. Parents are getting out their phones during sessions. I ask them not to, but they do. They're zoning out because they're stressed. Perhaps I should stop doing this. But actually, this little meeting today has made me think, no, actually, I really do need to keep doing. This is my thing that I need to do, creating these little oases of playfulness and possibility for families with young children, and just so thank you. I think this has re-energized me in feeling that this thing is an important thing to do, creating that, you know, as in any kind of group creative endeavor, be it a choir, be it a dance, be it a song. I mean, and I also wanted to say something about the embodiment, using the body, because children are the absolute best teachers of being embodied, so that when I'm telling a story and conveying an emotion, I do use gesture a lot, but what happens is a kind of feedback loop, which I'm sure, Briony, you find within a group setting of dance, in that the way that the children respond in their movements, I will then mimic that and then generate a whole new thing. I'm just rambling, but it's nice to have little ideas sparked off by you. So thank you very much, Briony.
Oh, my pleasure, Catherine. And I love the sound of what you're doing. And I don't want to be cheeky, but just a possibility to add is, you know, doing something for 17 years is a long time to do something. And so there's parts of you that are like, oh, I love this. There's a reason why I've been doing it for 17 years. It's a beautiful thing to do. There's another part of you that's saying, I'm too old, I'm too tired. And I think, you know, the transition into elderhood, ceasing to be a load-bearing wall that's like churning something out day after day, week after week, but then these other possibilities that open up. And I haven't met you, this is very left field, but you know, medicine, I was just at Medicine Festival and I had a very deep time there, and it was particularly deep because of three women, and I was explaining it to my partner earlier. I was like, they were kahunas. Like, a kahuna is a Hawaiian female shaman, and none of them were Hawaiian, but the way they were showing up, these older women who were in service to the community and spiritual leadership, who were praying on and for and on behalf of the human, like holding that connection between the human community and the more than human community and all that it can be, and supporting the mamas and supporting the women and supporting the couples and supporting the parents and support, like, and they were all women and they all had the different ways of doing it, but like, gosh, they were valuable. And I thought, where are the kahunas in my life? Like, where are the kahunas in South Devon? I feel the absence of them. I miss them. I want them. I need them. Maybe there's a kahuna in you wanting to grow out of last 17 years and become something new. I don't know.
Maybe.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Jeremy.
Yeah, well, there are sort of two poles. And first of all, thank you. I really enjoyed this, far more than I was expecting to, actually. It's really good, especially the dance bit and the talking nonsense bit. But there are two poles in this kind of event, aren't there? One is the creativity, playful, three primary school kahunas, and the other is the dentist. The other is the dentist. So the dentist represents something rather scary and necessary but painful. So I'm going to speak for the dentist pole. I just wanted to make put in a word for dead white males as a nearly dead white male. But Bach, Beethoven and Mozart were brilliant improvisers.
Yeah.
And don't forget that. If you look at, you know, their variations, I mean, one of the most difficult of all the Beethoven piano pieces is the variations on a theme. And that was, he just sat down at the piano and improvised. So let's knock that too much. And they couldn't help being either dead, white or male.
They weren't dead at the time, though, were they?
But there's sort of a question here, I think, which in a way comes out of Kim's 4 columns. And you talked about this sort of distinction between the authenticity of column 4 and the kind of compromise or a kind of official position of column 2. Now, it seems to me, Briony, that it seems to me there are two ways of sort of working this. One is to say, well, you just find your own community. You find your authentic community. But to my mind, the sort of gap or the between column 2 and column 4 is the gap between what I would call fantasy and reality. So you can either say, well, let's go and live in a fantasy world. There are lots of other people who share my fantasies and we all get together, all dance together and everything will be great. But are you going to change the world? See, I think the job is to somehow get the part of yourself, which is living in the real world, to kind of start talking to the fantasy part or the column 4 part. And I don't think we should just knock column 2 at all. That's the real world. That's what's going on. And so my question, if there is a question rather than just a kind of rant, is to what extent or what kind of ways do you think about making that conversation between column 2 and column 4 come about, given that you obviously have?
Brilliant points, Jeremy. Thank you. My simple answer is singing about it and making, I'm going this weekend to Oxford Storytelling Festival, and it's all about new stories. And so I'm just finishing a song called Forward to the Land. It's been in pieces for years. I'm like, right, it's time to sew these pieces together for these gigs of new story convergence. But what really struck me in what you're saying is the feeling that we're in this liminal space about what is fantasy and what is reality, because you could reverse what you said. Column 2 is going on various fantasies, a fantasy that we can have endless economic growth, a fantasy that it's all right to have 11 billion people on the earth by the end of the century, a fantasy that it's sustainable to have this level of inequality in the country, or that it doesn't really matter that how much species loss we have in the UK. Like that's the fantasies of column 2. And column 4, like Charles Eisenstein says, like, the way out of this paradigm isn't realistic, but it is possible. Like, we have to start with a dream when we're in a broken paradigm and we're looking for a way to a healthier one. But all around us is the world that has been constructed for the last several thousand years. It's like, what else do we have to begin with but a dream? But you can't light a fire without a spark, even if you're just dancing in the dark, as it always says. You have to start with a fantasy and then follow the lure of that longing until it gradually becomes reality. And then the fantasies of, I don't know, gods in the sky and nature isn't sentient and whatever is in column 2 starts to be revealed as a fantasy and weaken.
Thank you for your answer. I don't agree with it, but thank you for it.
I think if we have more time, I would love to continue the conversation. I'm curious about your disagreement, but
brilliant. So again, with what I'm seeing coming through as a theme is story and narrative in many, many ways, and yeah, really, really grateful for the way you, Briony, have enriched my stories, and long may it continue. So I think that's probably a good point to pause. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming.
Can I just say thank you so much, Kim, for all your service and the path of really powerful, beautiful service that you're on. And it's a pleasure to be touching into that at some point. And everybody, I just really celebrate that you're in a local area having these conversations and turning towards each other and sharing this theme together. So all power to you. And yeah, it feels like what we've talked to today is getting goofy, playing, being creative, and then noticing longings and following the numinous, what nourishes you, what attracts you, what the following.
Yeah.
The kind of food along the journey.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you everybody for coming and
thank you.
Giving of your time and your energy and your love and your connection. Keep an eye out for future sessions. We've got a lot of conversations coming up. We have another 2-hour free webinar on the, I think it's the 18th of September, but also conversations with other people. So if you go on the website, there's a lot coming up, and it would be great to see you at some of those. So enjoy the rest of your day. I will send round the recording for Briony's Thank You for Your Heart. And Briony, if you'd send me some of your playlists, I will distribute those as well. Thank you.
Great. Lovely to see you, everyone.
Okay.
Take care.
Lots of love.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Farewell. Bye.